Lotus was one of the oldest and most successful teams in Formula One, second only to Ferrari to reach the 50-win mark. During the 1960s, the Lotus Climax cars propelled Jim Clark to the 1963 and 65 titles and Graham Hill to the 1968 title. That year, team founder Colin Chapman was the first to introduce sponsorship and wings, and the team became known for its technical innovation, especially as the 60s turned into the 70s. Jochen Rindt won the 1970 title posthumously, then Emerson Fittipaldi took the 1972 title in the revolutionary Lotus 72. Fittipaldi and Swede Ronnie Peterson helped the team win the 1973 Constructors' title, but by 1975 the team had hit a bad patch, although US driver Mario Andretti was able to salvage a win at the last race of the 1976 season. The 1977 car was much better though, and by 1978 Andretti and Peterson had brought the team another Constructors' Championship and the Drivers' title for Andretti, although celebrations were muted as Ronnie Peterson was tragically killed at the last race of the year. The iconic black and gold John Player Special sponsorship was replaced for 1979 with British Racing Green and Martini branding, and Carlos Reutemann joined to replace Peterson. Reutemann failed to make much impact in the new Lotus 80 car and jumped ship to Williams, so Colin Chapman recruited Elio de Angelis to partner Andretti. But the 1980 Lotus was as much of a disaster as the 79 car, and Andretti and De Angelis managed only 4 points between them. Andretti was tempted away by Alfa Romeo at the end of the season, so Nigel Mansell was promoted to the senior team. Born in Rome to a speedboat racing father, Elio de Angelis progressed from karting into Formula 3, where he won the 1977 Italian Championship, and graduated into Formula 2, where he raced first for Minardi and then for the British ICI team. For 1979 he was offered an F1 seat with the Shadow team, and despite a desperately uncompetitive and unreliable car, he proved his talent by bringing it home fourth at the final race of the season. Recruited for Lotus in 1980, he raised eyebrows by finishing second in his second race, but the car just wasn't good enough, and 3 further points finishes, a 6th and 2 fourths, was all he could manage. Nonetheless, with Andretti's departure, De Angelis becomes the Lotus team's lead driver for 1981. Like Nelson Piquet, Nigel Mansell struggled against the wishes of his father, and his progress to Formula One was slower than some, as he financed every step of the way himself. Winning his debut Formula Ford race was a good start though, and he went on to take 6 race wins out of 9 in his inaugural season, moving on to become British Formula Ford champion with 33 wins out of 42 in 1977, despite a nasty crash at Brands Hatch that gave him neck injuries and almost rendered him quadriplegic. He moved up to Formula 3, but struggled in an uncompetitive car until injured in another crash, this time a spectacular one with Andrea de Cesaris. However, Colin Chapman saw his potential as a test driver and offered him 3 race drives in 1980 to develop Lotus's new car before promoting him to the first team after Andretti's departure. Founded in the 1960s as a junior Formula team, Maurice Mo Nunn's Ensign outfit was bankrolled into the big time in 1973 by Ricky von Opel, a scion of the Opel car manufacturing dynasty, who entered 6 races with them that year, finishing 2. Opel suddenly left after the first race of the 1974 season, leaving Ensign scrambling for drivers. 1975 brought Dutch sponsorship and drivers, and a first point from Gijs van Lennep at his home race, then an ageing Chris Amon and Jackie Ickx for 1976 and more points, followed in 1977 by the surprising capture of Clay Regazzoni, released by Ferrari. He preferred a small friendly team to an offer from Brabham. Regazzoni scored just 3 times in 1977 and left for fellow strugglers Shadow, and in 1978 Ensign employed 6 different drivers, including Danny Ongais, the Flying Hawaiian, debutant Nelson Piquet, and Irishman Derek Daly, who scored the team's only point at the last race. 1979 and 1980 were both pointless for the team, even with the return of Regazzoni for the first 4 races of 1980, and heading into 1981 prospects did not look great for Mark Seurer to improve on matters. Born in northern Switzerland, Mark Seurer came into racing relatively late in life, debuting in Formula 2 at 25. In his 3rd season in 1978 he was placed 2nd and then won the European F2 Championship the following year, despite only winning 2 of the 12 races. This was enough to get him a drive with Ensign for the last 3 races of the season, Then he moved to ATS for 1980 before returning to Ensign for the 1981 season. In 1977, French car manufacturer Renault decided to enter a factory team in Formula One, partly as a prestige project but mainly as a testbed for new advances in turbocharger technology. The first turbocharged car in F1 history debuted at the British Grand Prix in 1977, driven by Jean-Pierre Jabouille, and made it 16 laps before the turbo broke. And for the rest of the year, and most of the following one, the teams were rewarded only with the frequent sight of their cars pulling off with broken engines, assuming they made the grid at all. However, the team didn't give up, and for 1979 introduced a new ground effect car and a second driver in René Arnoux. It was more of the same for the first half of the season. Qualifying times improved, but racers saw the yellow kettles brewing up with monotonous regularity. But then, at the French Grand Prix in Dijon, the two cars suddenly came good, qualifying on the front row and then driving a magnificent race for Jabouille to take the team's first win and Arnoux to come in third after an epic battle for second with Gilles Villeneuve. Arnoux went on to score 2 more second places and a sixth, and 1980 saw the team challenging more regularly, but still prone to reliability issues. Jabouille won in Austria but retired from every other race bar one, while Arnoux won in Brazil and South Africa from pole and had better luck overall. At the penultimate race of the season, Jabouille crashed heavily and broke his leg, just after signing for the Ligier team, while Alain Prost was tempted away from McLaren after his debut year there to partner Arnoux for a hopefully better 1981. Alain Prost took to karting from an early age and left school in 1974 to concentrate on his racing career. He moved up to French Formula Renault, winning his first season, then into Formula 3 in 1978, winning both the French and European F3 titles in 1979, placing him firmly on F1 teams' radar. In the end, he signed for McLaren for the 1980 season and scored a point in his first race and 4 more over the season. A promising first year, though, was marred by a number of accidents for which Prost felt he was unduly blamed when the car itself was at fault, and he moved to the Renault team for 1981, vowing never to drive for McLaren again. René Arnoux won the 1977 European Formula 2 Championships with the Renault F2 team and got his Formula 1 debut with the small French garage team Martini. He qualified 4 times and finished 3 races, but the team folded before the end of the year, and Arnoux moved to Surtees, also on its last legs, for the final 2 races, in which he finished once. However, his clear talent and Renault connections won him a seat at the company's Works Formula 1 team when it expanded to 2 cars for 1979. And despite the car's unreliability, Arnoux managed to score his first points, 3 podium visits, including that epic battle with Villeneuve in France, and a 6th place. In 1980 he went one better and won 2 races at the start of the year, though poor reliability restricted his results to 1 more podium and a lower points finish. Although not one of the big names of Formula 1, March had a decent pedigree in the sport. Formed in 1969 by 4 friends, Max Mosley, Alan Rees, Graham Coker and Robin Hurd, March built customer chassis across a variety of formulae, as well as running Works F1, F2 and F3 teams. The F1 team began well, with Chris Amon and Joe Sefer steering them to 3rd place in the Constructors' Championship in 1970, and Ronnie Peterson and a selection of other drivers steering the bizarre-looking March 711 to 4th place the following year. Results dropped off as the 1970s progressed, however, and, despite making a little bit of history when Lella Lombardi became the first woman to score F1 points for the team in 1976, the team eventually gave it up at the end of 1977, following a string of retirements and DNQs, although their customer cars were doing well for privateers. After 3 years concentrating on Formula 2, March made a comeback with the team now managed by Mike Ralph and John McDonald of RAM, Ralph and McDonald Racing, a privateer team around since 1976. Chilean Eliseo Salazar and Irishman Derek Daly would pilot the black cars for March's comeback. Cheerful Dubliner Daly had come into racing relatively late, having spent some time tin mining in Australia to finance his career. He made his way through the junior formulae in Britain and Europe and won the 1977 European Formula 2 Championship, and while driving in F2 during 1978, made his F1 debut with the struggling Hesketh team. He continued in 1978 in Formula 2 with Ron Dennis's Project 4 team while picking up F1 drives where possible for Ensign and at the end of the year in a 3rd Tyrrell. This last led to a full-time contract with Uncle Ken's team for 1980, where he managed 2 fourth places, but is better remembered for 2 nasty accidents, one at the first corner in Monaco when his car was catapulted over 2 others, and one at Zandvoort where he was flung over the barriers. Born in the Chilean capital of Santiago, Eliseo Salazar was a good fit with Derek Daly and March, a cheerful, fun-loving driver at a laid-back, friendly team. Salazar would make his World Championship debut in Long Beach with the March team, but did have experience in a Formula One car, having competed in the 1980 domestic British Aurora AFX Formula One series in a customer Williams FW07, following a season in Formula 3. Brazil's own Formula One team was founded by Wilson Fittipaldi, brother of 1972 and 74 world champion Emerson, and was originally named for the principal sponsor, Copersucar. The car was launched in 1974 and driven in 74 and 75 by Wilson Fittipaldi without much success, but at the end of 1975 Emerson Fittipaldi shocked the F1 paddock by announcing that he was leaving McLaren to join his brother's team. The 1976 car was better, and Emerson was able to score points for 3 sixth places, and with the same car in 1977 managed 2 fourth and 1 fifth place. With a new designer, the 1978 car was even better, and Emerson came second in the team's home race, but by 1979 the Copersucar sponsorship had dried up, and the team merged with the also struggling Wolf outfit, running Wolf's driver Keke Rosberg alongside Emerson in 1980, with a replacement sponsorship from Skoll. By now, Emerson was past his best, and after being regularly shown up by Rosberg, retired at the end of 1980, leaving Keke to lead the team, with the thankless task of replacing the great Emerson Fittipaldi given to Brazilian debutant Chico Serra. Keke Rosberg was born in Stockholm but grew up in Finland, and got his start racing Formula V, Formula Atlantic, and its Australian equivalent Formula Pacific, and Formula 2, before finally making his F1 debut at the relatively advanced age of 29 with Teddy Yip's Theodore team. He turned heads with a great drive to win the non-championship BRDC International Trophy, but spent the rest of the season failing to qualify, either with Theodore or ATS. In mid-1979 he joined Wolf to replace James Hunt, who'd abruptly retired, but the Canadian team were on their last legs and merged with the equally struggling Fittipaldi team at the end of the season, putting Keke alongside Formula champion Emerson Fittipaldi. Rosberg took third on his debut with the team and, despite 3 DNQs, outscored his illustrious teammate by 1 point. With Fittipaldi's subsequent retirement, Rosberg now takes on the team leader role. Emerson Fittipaldi's emergence as Brazil's first superstar of Formula One had encouraged many young Brazilians to want to emulate their hero, and, with domestic racing in South America being seen as inferior, many followed in Emerson's footsteps by heading to Britain to make their name. Francisco Chico Serra was well funded and found himself a good mentor in Ron Dennis at the Project 4 team in Formula 3. Serra won several races in 1978, but a big accident saw him miss out on the title to fellow countryman Nelson Piquet, and decided to stay in F3 for 1979, taking the title with 5 wins. Moving up to Formula 2, still with Project 4, he found himself a slightly smaller fish in a slightly bigger pond and could only manage a clutch of 4th places, but things still looked promising for 1981. Then Formula 1 came calling. Serra's hero Emerson Fittipaldi had retired, and the Fittipaldi team wanted a Brazilian driver to replace him. Ready or not, he didn't feel able to pass up the opportunity and joined the team to make his debut in Long Beach. Alfa Romeo's involvement with motor racing goes back almost as long as motor racing itself, and the team won every race in the inaugural 1950 season, but had withdrawn after the 1951 season when their 15-year-old car design was shown up by Ferrari and the factory declined to spend money designing a new one. Since then, Alfa had competed in sports car racing to develop its new Flat 12 sports engine, and by the mid-1970s Formula One teams were showing interest. Brabham won the race to sign an engine contract, but struggled with reliability, not least due to the weight of the engine, and they dropped them as soon as they could. Meanwhile, though, Alfa Romeo had decided to return to F1 as a works team and debuted their new car in 1979, first with the Flat 12 and later a V12 layout. The team only competed in a few 1979 races and ran their first full season in 1980. Bruno Giacomelli scored points with 5th places in Argentina and Germany, but the team was hit hard by the death of driver Patrick Depailler practicing for the German race. With veteran Vittorio Brambilla and young charger Andrea de Cesaris both failing to impress as replacements, Alfa Romeo scored something of a coup by signing 1978 world champion Mario Andretti away from the struggling Lotus team to partner long-serving Giacomelli. Born in Trieste, Italy, just as World War II was ending, Mario lived in a displaced persons camp until the age of 7, when his family emigrated to the US, and by then racing was in his blood, with childhood memories of the great Italian names of the 1950s, Ascari, Farina, Ferrari, and of course Alfa Romeo. The Andrettis became US citizens in 1964, and that same year Andretti made his IndyCar debut at Trenton. He competed in his first Indy 500 the next year and spent the next decade racing in the US, but Colin Chapman at Lotus had spotted him, and in 1968 Andretti gave F1 a try. He continued through the late 60s and early 70s to drive sporadically in F1 and even won for Ferrari on his team debut in 1971. However, his primary career remained stateside until his Parnelli team decided to enter Formula One in 1975 and took Andretti along with him. When Parnelli folded after the first two races of 1976, Andretti stayed in F1 with Lotus, combining his expertise at setting up a car with the team's groundbreaking work in ground effect aerodynamics. 1977 saw 4 race wins, more than any other driver, but reliability, accidents and plain bad luck meant he only finished 3rd overall. In 1978, the stars aligned and the Lotus 79 dominated the series. Mario took his world title at the season-ending Italian Grand Prix, but there were no celebrations. Teammate and friend Ronnie Peterson was unsuccessfully fighting for his life after an accident at the start of the race. Lotus imploded after the glory of 1978, though. The new Lotus 80 was a disaster, and the team had to go back to the 79, by which point the others had caught up, and 1979 and 80 were frustrating years, so a move to Alfa Romeo seemed tempting. Popular Italian Bruno Giacomelli made his way initially through British domestic racing before moving into European Formula 3 and Formula 2. Winning the 1977 European F3 Championship in dominant style brought him to the attention of Formula 1 teams, and he had a trial drive with McLaren that year, followed by a handful of races with them the following year. Signed up for 1979 by Auto Delta, then running Alfa Romeo's racing affairs, he became the lead development driver for the new Alfa Romeo Works project, scoring the team's first points in Argentina in 1980 and helping the team recover from Depailler's death at Hockenheim with 5th place in that race and a pole position at the final race of the year at Watkins Glen.